Hey y'all. For those of you that have used these question cards, We Connect cards, you might be wondering, what the heck do I do with the back? So there's questions on one side and actions on the other. And I just got an email a couple hours ago from Mary. And Mary said, "Hi, I'd like to know how to use the back side of the We Connect cards. Looks like people stretching, and I'm wondering how to incorporate this into a team building session. I've searched your website and just can't find any information on this. Please help." So Mary, thank you for asking. Here's my answer, shared with Mary and all the other Marys that might be wondering. So for a little bit of context, right? These We Connect cards, which there's a free digital version of in the link described below. If you're new to the cards, if you have the cards and you're watching this, you may or may not know that the cards are color coded. So there's three types of cards. The ones I'm holding up here, purple cards, or it looks kind of pink on this video, questions that encourage some level of self-reflection. Green cards tend to be fun and light, and blue cards tend to be a little bit deeper. So they're the kinds of questions that you're like, "Ooh, this is going to sink us down." And when creating this deck, specifically incorporated those three so that people could have choice in the types of conversation. Now, to tell you why the action is on the back and what you can do with it, I need to give you the context that I created this deck almost 10 years ago now with the intention to solve a problem. I was leading these outdoor adventure trips for teenagers. So I was taking them rock climbing and mountain biking and this week-long experience. And the first half day of that experience was, I didn't use this language at the time, but it was connection before content. It was, how do we connect this group of people, the teenagers? So think like talking to another person, meeting them for the first time. What do I do with my hands, right? There's that level of awkwardness. And so I just asked myself, when I'm getting these groups and these people to connect, what can I put in between those two people to make that go better? That has since scaled out to this deck, We Connect cards, which is being used in 80 plus countries around the world in all sorts of contexts. The questions are remarkably inclusive and inviting. There's an immense amount of choice in how and what you do with them. In fact, along with the deck comes a resource with 10 plus different exercises with video tutorials of things you can do with them, both in person and virtually. The action side I incorporated because if you ever pair up a 15-year-old with a 13-year-old and say, have a chat, get to know each other, it looks painful. Obviously, depending on the 15-year-old and the 13-year-old, but it looks kind of painful. There's like this awkwardness. And so I originally created these when I had people in a question swap. So pair up with somebody, ask the question on your card, listen to their response, swap cards, toss your hand in the air, signaling that you're looking for somebody new. It's this beautiful, it's one of my favorite exercises, this beautiful self-facilitating process that allows people to be in conversation for as long or as little as possible. And so I just added the dynamic. As you're in conversation, feel free, when you're listening to that conversation, feel free to do the action or the stretch on the back of your card. So as you're talking, if you want to do this, or there's some that are stretching like this, or a leg stretch, you can't see that, a leg stretch over here. So feel free to occupy your hands, get a little bit of physical movement in. That was the original intent, and that is one teeny little way of using them. The cards, there's 60 cards in the deck, and so there are 20 purple cards, 20 green cards, and 20 blue cards. And in that, there are 10 different actions. So you do the math of that, right? 10 different actions. That means this action appears twice in purple cards, twice in green cards, and twice in blue cards. So it can be a really beautiful way to randomly pair people up into small groups. You give everybody their cards and you say, everybody with purple cards get together. Or everybody, without saying a word, get into groups with people that match the action on the back of your card. So you can't show them your card and you can't say anything, get into groups. And if you're following me here, that requires everybody to actually do the action on their card to see what other people are doing. Now, with this deck, it's flexible for groups of all sizes, shapes, and purposes. And so for some groups, I would never do that exercise. And for others, they're craving to stand up, move, get some physical movement, and not just sit around and chat. And so that's a really perfect way to group people up. There are also a couple other exercises on that resource that I showed you, and you can access that in the link below. weend.me/free routes you to all of our free resources, including the video tutorials for WeConnect cards. So even if you don't have the deck, you can still get a whole bunch of icebreakers and energizers and deeper, more meaningful connection before content exercises there. This is an uncut video. So this is me thinking. One other exercise that I'll offer to you is called mirror neurons. So if you've ever watched a movie and you've cried, even though you weren't in the movie and you didn't have that thing happen to you, you still feel, it's empathy. Mirror neurons have been called our empathy neurons because when you see somebody else crying, it cues the same neurons in you sometimes and cues that same emotion. So it's the reason if you saw me slam my hand in the car door, you would cringe. That's your mirror neuron saying, ooh, that hurt, right? So I wanted to play with that a little bit. And so created this exercise called mirror neurons where I invite people to choose an action that they're willing to do. And their goal is to get as many points as possible. Okay, so their goal is to get as many points as possible. The way you get a point is by getting a match. The way you get a match is by going up to somebody, squaring off, staring them in the eyes, and on the count of 3, 3, 2, 1, doing the action on the back of your card. If you match, if you do the same action at the same time, give that person a high five or a fist bump, that's 1 point. If you do not match, see you later, pair up with somebody else. So it becomes this really kind of fun, energizing, frantic exercise. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the secret behind mirror neurons. People freak out. I'm talking like senior executives to 13-year-olds and everywhere in between. People freak out when they get a match. There's like, oh, we did the same action at the same time. I don't know why. It's a little bit silly, admittedly. But that is one beautiful exercise that I use with the cards. Mirror neurons, sorting people into groups, just having people do the action on the back of their card. Sometimes as a warm-up, if you do stand-up meetings in your context, have everybody grab a card with an action they're willing to do. And while they're in that stand-up meeting, have them do that stretch or that action. So every time somebody new talks, you switch sides or you trade cards to the person to your left and right and switch actions so that at the end of a 5 or 10 minute meeting, you've done a bunch of randomly selected exercises. There's probably about half of them that do something with your arms and half of them that do something with your legs. I'll end with a funny story. When I first created the deck and was piloting it, so I didn't just come up with these questions and print a deck and launch them out. I actually, back in some nerdy academic days, I wrote a research paper that got published in the International Journal for Designs of Learning. I forget the name of the journal now. It was almost 10 years ago. I pilot tested these cards, these questions, and these exercises with 3 different groups. So it was a nonprofit group, a technology company, and one other university academic grad school group. And this action in particular that's in the deck, somebody looked at it, and all of a sudden I'm looking in the room, we're doing this exercise where people are matching up, and I see a person doing push-ups. I'm like, what is going on? They had read the card this way. So I recognize they're stick figures, gender neutral stick figures that are doing actions that some of them, there's probably 2 or 3 out of the 10 that are open to interpretation, which actually just creates a little bit of joy anyhow. Obviously, there's an accessibility component of not everybody can do this if they don't have use of their hands. Not everybody can do, I grabbed 4 hand ones. Where's the blue one? There you go. Not everybody can do this if they're in a wheelchair or they've got a bum knee or an ankle. And so whenever I'm doing an exercise with WeConnect cards using the action side, I'm always inviting people to choose an exercise that you can do or that you would like to do, or adapt what is on the back of your card to fit something that you can do. Right? I never want to put somebody in the position where they're like, wow, this is awkward. I literally cannot do this for whatever reason. So just a little accessibility inclusion note there. And I think that's a pretty good synopsis of how to use the back of WeConnect cards. Hope this was useful. Cheers.